Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Welcome back to r/EntitledPeople, where many of you come to get your daily dose of Karens. Guys, I hope you're having another great start to the week today, and you know how we do it. You're about to hear some outrageous stories, so buckle up, my friends, as the stories in this episode today will progressively get more and more entitled as it goes on, ending with one of the craziest stories that I've read in a really long time. So with that said, let's dive in, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button, guys, if you haven't already. So every Thursday, my nearby grocery store has a great deal for prime rib dinner with potatoes and veggies for $9.99. Now, a lot of people come to get it, and there's usually lines from the carving stand into the produce section. Tonight, I was feeling lazy and did not want to make dinner at all, and I realized it was prime rib night, so I made my way over to the store and got in line behind two other people. An older guy on his own in front of me, and an older woman who just oozed suburban entitlement and annoying customer vibes. We'll call her Entitled Suburbanite, or Karen for short. And true to form, she's up there ordering 4 boxes of prime rib for her and her family, and taking her sweet time, looking at each and every piece of prime rib the carving guy has up on the cutting board. And she's trying to make up her mind about the doneness on each one, all the while the line builds behind her. Now, this has the carving guy a little bit exasperated, because now the line is up to 9 people, who are all watching this unfold and becoming increasingly antsy. She gets 3 out of her 4 boxes, and then all of a sudden decides that not only does she want the perfect medium rare piece for her husband, but then she proceeds further yet. Karen says, "So, is there any chance that you could cut off a slightly bigger piece for this one? It's for my husband. I want to treat him tonight." The carving guy says, "I'm sorry, ma'am, we have to cut the same size for everybody." Karen then says, "Listen, are you sure you can't just cut it a little bit bigger? My husband works a 12-hour shift today, and I'd love it if you could. He works really hard. He deserves it. Trust me." The carving guy says, "Sorry, I can't. Is that all for you tonight?" Karen then says, "Fine then. If you want to be that way, be that way." She then moves aside to grab some other things, and that's when the carving guy goes to help some guy in front of me, and is getting down to the last couple of slices of that piece of prime rib, and cuts him the same size piece as the rest, about an inch thick, leaving one larger than normal piece of prime rib, probably just under 2 inches, left on the counter. As Karen grabs her sauces, I saunter up and say, "Hi, how are you tonight? I just need 1 portion for myself, please and thanks." The carving guy looks at me and smiles, looks back at Karen, and then back at me, and he says, "You want the big piece?" And of course, I accepted and thanked him politely, while Karen's face transformed, saying, "Why, I never." And this is how I came to feast on a twice as large as normal piece of prime rib, and heaping piles of sides tonight, while at the same time helping the carving dude fight off an annoying entitled woman. Guys, I have said this many times before. I have so much respect for those who work and have to deal with entitled people all the time. Can't you just cut me a bigger piece? My husband works really hard, and he deserves it. Trust me. Oh my goodness, I almost died reading that part. OP did actually post a picture of the prime rib that he got, beside a measuring tape. I love how he knew he was gonna write this wonderful tale on Reddit as soon as he got home. It looks absolutely delicious, guys. So, my university had a dorm for foreign exchange students. It was intended for short-term residency and lacked many of the amenities of the other dorms. The dorm was divided into pods, each with 4 or so rooms attached to a common kitchen and bathroom. It was 4 people to a room, no privacy, no locks, no rules. You were assigned to a pod, but they didn't bother assigning beds, so you just took one and worked it out amongst yourselves. But the rent was cheap, about 150 euros or so the local students also took advantage. The space was tight, but people more or less got along. However, there was this one girl who was the definition of entitled. She would buy just enough groceries for a family of 4, stuff the communal fridges full of her food, and then leave it to rot, and then freak out at anybody who dares to move her things or to throw away her rotten food. She would shamelessly take anybody else's laundry out of the running machines to put her stuff in the machine instead, and leave the other person's wet laundry in a heap on the floor. And yes, most of the time it was on the floor. To make matters worse, she apparently felt entitled to the best room or bed or whatever, and she would routinely move to another student's bunk, dumping their stuff in the hall. I don't know why this behavior was permitted to continue, but whatever, it was university. So each pod has a resident advisor, essentially a student mentor, responsible for ordering repairs and babysitting. And they got their own room with a locking door. So our advisor graduates at the end of my 3rd year and left her room over the summer. Entitled Jerk immediately moves in. Unfortunate for me, I was assigned as the new RA. I got the news less than a week before the end of my summer session. I told the Entitled Jerk to move out, the resident manager told her to move out, and other people warned her. And her response was, "Don't you dare touch my stuff." She decided to go for a long weekend with some friends to get away from the hostile environment. Now, the thing is, my classes were over, and I was gonna go home to my parents for the rest of the summer. My parents lived about 10 hours away by train, and I wasn't about to drag my stuff home with me when I had a perfectly good locking room. I texted the Entitled Jerk one last time, asking her what she wanted me to do with her things. And she responds, "Don't you dare. My stuff stays. It's worth more than anything you've ever owned." Okay, well that seems reasonable to me. So I get a couple boxes, gently packed up her things, stowed them under my bed, and moved my stuff in. And then I locked up. I then get a furious text message a few days later, demanding to know if I had locked the room. I reminded her that this was my room, and she demanded to know where her things were. I told her, "Well, you told me to leave them, so I did." I then told her she was welcome to pay for a train ticket for me to come back, to unlock my room, to let her collect her things, and for her to get out. She declined. She told me if I wanted to come back that I need to pay for my own ticket. Well, given that I did not want to come back, I passed on her offer and stayed gone for the next 4 weeks. She had to wrap up her studies with 4 days worth of clothes, and her computer was locked in my room, and as far as I know, she didn't even have a blanket or a pillow. I never did see her again. Her parents got her stuff when I returned. Oh, this story was so satisfying, guys. OP was at least nice enough to let her keep her belongings safe in his room though, locked away. I know a lot of people might have just boxed it all up and left it outside the door with a big sign that says, "Free." Especially with how she was acting. I mean, come on, taking people's half-done load of laundry out of the wash and tossing the wet clothes on the floor. How the heck did she walk the hallways without at least one person dumping a can of paint on her? A handful of years back, I worked for a Rite Aid. Normally, they have big parking lots that are never full, but this one was different. The Rite Aid was also in the heart of, oh god, I can't walk 5 feet without homeless people asking me for drug money. Great place to work at. There was no parking other than paid spots anywhere close. There was an excessive amount of crime, drug use, fights, panhandling, etc., and it was a very sketchy area to work. Because of this, I always felt a little bad that the area right in front of the store was our loading zone. I always made sure to give people a heads up when I saw them park there, if I knew trucks were coming. A lot of people did a fast in and out, never causing any trouble. I get it, you don't want to pay parking and then walk through the gauntlet of homeless. I really do get it. But then, there was this one lady. Shall we call her Georgette? Now, Georgette had a little nice white car. And I'm not a car person, I just know it was really nice, kinda sporty, and looked really expensive. She always parked in the loading zone, and I always warned her. She always responded to my warnings by being super rude, and it wasn't like she was just in and out either. She was always in the store for a minimum of 30 minutes. She was also always entitled at the register, the type to stomp her feet and whine if we could not take expired coupons. So of course, she parks in her usual illegal parking spot bright and early one Monday morning. I tell her that we have 3 delivery trucks coming in less than an hour. She glares at me and goes off to do her shopping. So, delivery man number 1 arrives. It's the bread truck from the bakery. He double parks and comes in to ask me if I can get on the loudspeaker and ask her to move. Now, I know from previous experience that she will not respond. I tell him that and he just shrugs. He stays double parked and starts unloading. His truck is beside her car on the road. So at this point, another truck arrives, and this one is the cigarettes guy, plus a lot of other stuff. This guy parks behind her. And did I mention that this parking spot is the one where the sidewalk is cut away, specifically for deliveries? The sidewalk and a couple signposts and a street light were all that was in front of her car, so there was no going forward. And those signs, yeah, they happen to be the big no parking between X and X hour signs. So the lady comes up, pays, and discovers that she's blocked in, and the hissy fit begins. The bread delivery man informs her that he's almost done and will be moving in about 15 minutes. Now, this is not good enough. She screams, and then she gets on the phone to call police. Like I said, crappy part of town, and cops aren't gonna come to what is clearly a Karen with a parking issue. The bread truck then leaves. She now has a chance to drive away. But nope, she is too busy screaming, demanding a manager, yelling at the other delivery guy, and so on. She completely misses that she could just shut up and drive away now. By the time we get her to shut up and look outside, she starts walking towards the car to leave. And guess what? Delivery truck number 3 arrives. So this guy's a smart man. He sees the car with a truck right on its rear bumper, and he immediately knew what was going on. He proceeds to park right next to her and block her in again. Now, this guy was the grocery delivery man, and unloading his truck never took less than 1 hour. Long story short, she was fuming and ends up having to stand around for an hour. Georgette never parked there again. In fact, although I did leave about 3 months later, I don't recall seeing her ever again. Now, I don't think she stopped coming in. I think she just avoided me because I laughed at her. Now, my friends, the only thing that would have made this so much sweeter is if someone came by and wrote her a big fat ticket for parking in a loading zone. What the heck was this lady thinking? I'm gonna call the cops because I was parked somewhere I shouldn't have been, and these big bad meanies decided to block me in. How does that even make sense? So, this is a true story that happened in China. It revolves around this one family who was given special permission to have 2 kids as opposed to 1. So when the entitled mother had her second daughter, she decided that she didn't want her. They really wanted a son, and this daughter is just an inconvenience, taking up the precious spot for a baby boy. So she did what a lot of people did back then. They abandoned her without hesitation. The year after, the mother got pregnant with a boy, who was spoiled. The girl ends up being adopted by a couple more than 300 kilometers away from the village she was from. But the couple soon divorced after because of the stress that came with the adoption. So for 16 years, the man had been raising his adopted daughter on his own. The man is a crab farmer and is in nowhere rich, but he loved the girl as his own daughter. They were living a quiet and happy life together until one day, the entitled mom turns up in their town looking for them. It turns out her son got leukemia and needed some bone marrow, and nobody in the family had a match, so they turned to the daughter they abandoned 16 years ago, hoping that she would be a match. The father felt sorry for the 14-year-old boy, and he agreed to take the girl to a hospital for a test, but he was afraid that the girl would find out that she was abandoned for her gender. So he made the entitled mom promise not to tell her that she's adopted. The girl was a match and agreed to the procedure under the impression that she was donating for a stranger. So in the beginning, the dad was misled into thinking that donating bone marrow was as simple as donating blood. However, when the doctors told him that donating bone marrow was a risky procedure, he was worried that if there's any complication, that he won't have any means to save his daughter. The adoptive father then asked the mother for a sum of money for his daughter's health, saying that the money would be returned to the mom if the girl remains complication-free when she's married. The entitled mother refused, saying she did not need to give anything, as the father should be telling his daughter to do it because it's the right thing to do. The father then said not to worry about the money, but the surgery needs to be near where he's living, so he can take care of his daughter and work. The entitled mother refused again, saying it would be more expensive for them to schedule the surgery so far away from where they live. The father hesitated, and the entitled mom exploded on him. The entitled mom, her husband, and their eldest daughter marched into the girl's school right after class, stopped the car the girl was in, pulled open the door, grabbed the girl by her arm, and started to yell at her that she was adopted, that they are her real family and she needs to step up to save her young brother. The teachers had to physically intervene to stop them from kidnapping her. A bystander called the police, and even in the police station, the entitled mother kept pressuring the girl for her bone marrow. The girl was in shock after knowing that she was adopted in such a violent way and cried the whole night. This put her into a lot of psychological stress. The next day, the entitled mother prints out hundreds of open letters, calling both the girl and her father by name, saying they're cold-blooded people, and the girl, in particular, doesn't understand morals. She even brought up the fact that the adoptive father experienced miscarriages, and that's why they adopted her. The mom emphasized that the boy is the girl's biological brother, just to put more pressure on the girl. She put this all around the village the girl's living in, all the way to around the girl's school, so both of them can't even go back to their home. She even went to the village council and said the girl is rightfully hers, and she'll take the girl back and make her donate the bone marrow. Of course, she was told the girl was legally adopted, so she has no rights over her. And if she does anything like that, it would be called kidnapping. So at this point, she starts to interfere with the girl on her way to and from school. A teacher had to drive the girl to and from school for her safety, and they even got assaulted by the entitled mother's relative for their trouble. The entitled mother later went onto a television program probably wanting to tell the nation how this father and daughter are heartless, and she got ripped apart on live TV. The boy ended up getting a bone marrow transplant, and the thing is, if she had been less entitled and cruel to the girl, she would have already donated her bone marrow. She could have doomed her son to death because of this. So guys, this is one of the few stories that have made me upset. A mom abandons her child and then basically comes back years later to demand her partake in a life-saving procedure for the brother that she's never met, saying that she has to do it because they're family, just basically using the daughter. I don't know guys, I'm pretty sure many of you are feeling anger towards this woman, so I have to ask you this. If you were in the same situation that the daughter was in, would you or would you not donate your bone marrow to save your brother's life? And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /entitled people. Guys, we survived another one. Thank you so much for popping by to spend some time with me today and listening to these wild stories. If you missed the last episode of our /entitled people, an entitled neighbor keeps destroying OP's grass and learns a very expensive lesson. Check it out if you haven't, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I love you.